This Saturday is UFC Fight Night, Mexico City. Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval 2. And this is going to be my full card predictions. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you a quick breakdown and prediction. Starting off with the first fight of the night, Muhammad Naimov versus Erik Silva. Naimov came into the UFC on short notice, KO'd Jamie Malarkey. Then after that, got a win over Nathaniel Wood. Now, there was a lot of cheating in that fight, nut shots, fence grabs, and whatnot. Even without that, I think Naimov still would have won. And Nathaniel Wood is an excellent prospect in the featherweight division. And then Erik Silva made his UFC debut in his last fight, got submitted by TJ Brown. This is a relatively straightforward fight to predict. I'm going Muhammad Naimov. Faster, more powerful, probably better grappling. Honestly, definitely better grappling. I just think maybe Erik Silva has a BJJ advantage, but Silva's only good with his BJJ when he's on top. He's coming off Dana White's Contender Series, got a KO win there, fought nothing but inexperienced competition previous to that. I mean, not that long ago, he's fighting a guy who's 6-6. So I don't think Erik Silva wins this fight whatsoever. I think a lot of these times the Dana White Contender Series guys come off Dana White's Contender Series and the UFC really pushes them. If they lose, it's like they're thrown away. Okay, they're no good anymore. I think that's kind of what's happening with Erik Silva here. It would shock me if Naimov lost this fight. I'm going to go Muhammad Naimov second round KO. Moving up on the card, this is an amazing fight. Honestly, this fight night card, if you became a fan during or after the pandemic, this is what all fight night cards used to look like. Not these crappy Apex cards we get now. This is an amazing card. We have Victor Altamirano versus Felipe dos Santos. Altamirano coming off a loss against Tim Elliott, where he basically got out-grappled in that fight. Before that, got a win over Vinicius Salvador. That was a good fight, but honestly, I thought that was closer than a lot of people thought. And then you have Felipe dos Santos, kind of small for the weight class, honestly, even though it's flyweight, kind of small for the weight class, coming off a loss against Manuel Kopp, where he looked really good, even took a round off Manuel Kopp in that fight, was landing some good shots, just was at a power disadvantage. I think this is a really good scrap. I think both guys are really good strikers, but I think dos Santos is better. I think he's better on the feet, and if dos Santos had more power, I'd pick dos Santos to finish him. I think Altamirano is just one of those guys who has decent striking, but he gets pretty sloppy. And he doesn't have the best takedown defense either. And dos Santos, I believe, even shot a couple takedowns on Kopp and got him down, if I'm not mistaken. I just rewatched that fight the other day, but it's slipping my memory right now. I think dos Santos has the advantages everywhere is what I'm trying to say. Better striking, faster hands, better shot selection, a great cardio. I mean, 3 rounds, and he was super aggressive the entire 3 rounds against Kopp. I think dos Santos gets this done. I think he could get a finish, but I just didn't see a whole lot of power against Kopp. So I'm going to go Felipe dos Santos via decision. I think he wins like a clean 30-27 decision in a very fun fight. I think the first round will be really competitive and probably close. But then after that, I think dos Santos will start to pull away. I just think he's the better overall striker, and I think he can mix in the grappling too if he gets clipped up on the feet. I have to go Felipe dos Santos via decision. Moving up on the card, we have Luis Rodriguez versus Dennis Bondar. Honestly, this fight is difficult to predict because Luis Rodriguez is coming off Dana White's Contender Series. Actually, he's not coming off Dana White's Contender Series. I think he was on Dana White's Contender Series, lost, didn't get a contract, and now he's getting this fight after winning a couple fights. He's a guy that, is just kind of amateurish, sloppy, doesn't have the best striking, really just kind of a brawler. And then you have Dennis Bondar, who's coming off 2 losses, hasn't won a fight in 3.5 years, never won a fight in the UFC. The Malcolm Gordon fight, he posted up on his arm and kind of, I think he dislocated his elbow. And then the last fight, oh my God, what Carlos Hernandez did to him. Slammed him. There was like a head clash where he got KO'd. And then there was like 17 ground and pound elbows. I can't pick him after watching that fight. I mean, he has brain damage that's going to impact him for the rest of his life after that horrible stoppage by the referee who then caused the head clash. It was so weird. It was a technical decision loss because it happened towards the end of the 3rd round. But honestly, I think either one of these guys can win. I think Bondar has decent striking, decent kicks, decent grappling. Rodriguez is just okay, and he's kind of a brawler and very hittable. But I'm going to go Rodriguez. I can't pick Bondar after taking all that damage. So I'm going to pick Rodriguez. I'm going to say second round KO. I think he gets it done. Bondar kind of gets too cocky on the feet. We've seen him in I think it was the Malcolm Gordon fight where he's kind of taunting. I think also in the Carlos Hernandez fight, or I think it was only in the Hernandez fight. He's like kind of taunting on the feet, kind of landing some shots. When he eats a shot, he kind of taunts like Paulo Costa was doing when Whitaker was lighting him up. And I think eventually he's going to get clipped, hurt, and put away. I'm going Luis Rodriguez, second round KO. Moving up on the card, we have Claudio Puelles versus Fair Ziam. Claudio Puelles should have been cut from the organization after that disgraceful performance against Dan Hooker, where he's just dragging his ass up and down the canvas like a dog, dragging his ass on the carpet. And then you have Ziam, who's on a 2-fight winning streak. Beat Jai Herbert, beat Michael Figlak, and then before that lost to Terrence McKinney, got submitted there. Honestly, I think this is a fight that could go either way. I thought about picking Puelles because he does have really good jiu-jitsu, really good submissions, but his striking is just straight up garbage. And Ziam has good striking and decent takedown defense. And you look at Ziam, I mean, the Jai Herbert win was pretty decent. Outstruck him, mixing some of the clinch and grappling in that fight. And Jai Herbert's not like a total bum. And Claudio Puelles' best win is like the dead body of Clay Guida where he got a submission. And he loves the knee bar. So if Claudio Puelles wins, I think it'll be like a first-round knee bar. But the longer the fight goes, the more he's going to be skinning up his knees looking for takedowns. I'm going to go Ziam. I'm going to go Ziam via decision. I'm actually switching my pick. I was going to go Puelles via first-round knee bar. I just thinking of that performance. And I know he's taking some time off and hopefully he's improved. But I think Ziam beats him up. I'm going to go Ziam via decision. Maybe even a third-round TKO. I just see Puelles just skinning up his knees, shooting nonstop, getting teeped by Ziam. Ziam's improved. I think he's improved since Terrence McKinney's ragdolling him and submitting him. Also, I don't think Puelles has the offensive wrestling that Terrence McKinney does. So I'm going to go Ziam. I'm going to say a pretty clear 30-27 decision. Maybe Puelles gets him down the first round, like second half of the first round, it's close, gets him down, looking for a knee bar, gets lit up on the feet. I could see a fight. Let me break this down real quick. I could see a fight where Puelles is looking for the knee bar, but he's holding on to it and he's got his chin wide open on the ground, and I could see Ziam just pounding him out that way. But I'm going to go Ziam via decision, and I just think maybe Puelles could get around with a little bit of grappling in like the first round, but after that, he's done for. Moving up on the card, a fight that I've already broken down before, Edgar Cháirez versus Daniel Lacerda, and I predicted it down to a T. The first time I predicted it down to a T, I picked Cháirez via first-round guillotine, as excellent guillotines. Referee stopped it perfectly. Dom Cruz and the commentary team was shitting on him. The referee stopped it perfectly. Cháirez locked up a guillotine on Lacerda, choked him out. The referee jumped in at the absolute perfect timing. So by the time Cháirez was kind of letting go, he was still bearing his weight. Lacerda had time to wake up. They reviewed it, deemed it a no contest. It was a competitive fight up until that point. Both these guys are super scrappy on the feet. I know Lacerda is winless in his last 5, but he's been competitive. I mean, the CJ Vergara fight, he gassed himself out. He had CJ Vergara pulling a Chelsea Chandler. Fight before that was a decent fight against Victor Altamirano. Got tired there. So Lacerda's cardio is the massive issue. Where Cháirez's last fight, he lost to Taishiro Taira, but he almost had a guillotine in the third round, mounted guillotine. Had he had 30 more seconds, he would have beat Taira. So, and he's scrappy on the feet, good leg kicks, good hands. I think in this fight, it's going to be kind of competitive. They're both going to be kind of brawling a little bit. But I think eventually Lacerda is going to try to grapple again. He's going to look for a takedown up against the fence, and he's going to end up in a guillotine. I am going to go Edgar Cháirez first round guillotine, late first round guillotine. I'm picking the same pick as I did before. I just think he's filthy with that guillotine, and I think Lacerda's too dumb. He's going to make that mistake again, and I think he's going to get caught up against the fence in a guillotine. Moving up on the card, we have Jesus Aguilar versus Mateus Mendonça. I always want to say Mendonça, but I think it's pronounced Mendonça. Yeah, Mendonça, coming off a 2-fight losing streak, got ground and pound TKO by Nate Maness in his last fight, rolling for knee bars, by the way. Just relentlessly rolling for knee bars, gets finished there. Fight before that, lost to Javid Basharat. Had a decent showing, and I think that was on short notice, too. Before that, came off of Dana White's Contender Series. You have Jesus Aguilar, sent Shannon Ross to the Shadow Realm in his last fight in like 10 seconds. Fight before that, lost to Tyra, got submitted there very early in the fight. The one thing I don't like about Aguilar is his T-Rex arms. He has a 62-inch reach, where Mendonça has a 71.5-inch reach. But honestly, I don't know. There's a lot of tough fights to pick on this card. I think Aguilar has really good power, but that reach is really troubling. Has good jiu-jitsu, has 6 wins via submission, which is pretty good out of 9 wins. Inexperienced. Mendonça kind of mismanages his cardio, doesn't have great cardio, but has decent power and grappling. I believe I picked him against Nate Maness, if I'm not mistaken, and then he had a horrible fight IQ in that fight. You know what? I'm going to say Mendonça gets it done. I liked him in the Javid Basharat fight. Had really good grappling, even some takedowns against Javid, some reversals against Javid, but then eventually kind of gassed out. Had some decent striking against Javid. And I think Javid's way better than Aguilar. So I don't like the T-Rex arms. Mendonça has a decent chin, but I don't know, man. The fight IQ from rolling for that leg lock over and over again while he's getting pounded out on the canvas leaves a lot to be desired. So I'm kind of questioning this pick. But I'm going to go Mateus Mendonça. I'm going to say decision. I'm going to say he gets it done via decision, 29-28 decision. Maybe Aguilar gets around by maybe getting some top control on the ground. I don't know. I think it's going to be a close, scrappy fight, but Mendonça gets it done via 29-28 decision. Moving up on the card, we have Cristian Quiñonez versus Hani Barcelos. It's a really good fight, too. Quiñonez coming off that loss against Kang Ho Kang. I think is how you pronounce it, Kong. Was winning, clipped him, got aggressive, got clipped himself, ended up in a rear naked choke. But before that, he was looking pretty good. Got a KO win before that. Got a decision win on Dana White's Contender Series. Hadn't fought the best competition outside the UFC, but not horrible. I mean, 20-7 record, 14-1 record, where Hani Barcelos lost 4 out of his last 5. Lost to Kyler Phillips via decision his last fight. Got KO'd by Umar Nurmagomedov. Last wins against Trevin Jones. Fight before that, lost to Victor Henry. Fight before that, lost to Timur Valiev. And Hani Barcelos is just kind of one of these guys who is a veteran of the sport, decent everywhere. And I just don't know where he gets it done outside of maybe a decision where Quiñonez, very fast striker, has nasty power, a little bit of a questionable fight IQ. If he rocks you, he kind of rushes in. But I just don't know if Hani Barcelos is going to be able to go in there, just take him down and control him. I don't think he is. He's 36 years old. He's 36-year-old taking on a 27-year-old. That's just not good. Same height, basically same reach, a little bit of a reach advantage for Hani Barcelos, but he doesn't really use it that well. And I think Quiñonez, leaps and bounds better striker. So I'm going to go Cristian Quiñonez. I'm going to say first round KO. I think Hani Barcelos is going to try to grapple in this fight, but I think Cristian Quiñonez catches him on the chin and puts him to sleep in the first round. Moving up on the card, the first fight on the main card, we have Manuel Torres versus Chris Duncan. I actually like this fight quite a bit. I think it could go either way. Honestly, Chris Duncan has looked better each and every fight. Got a win over Yanal Asmus in his last fight. Before that, a win over Omar Morales, split decision win, which isn't a great look. And then before that, a KO win on Dana White's Contender Series against Charlie Campbell, which is aged decently unless you go back and watch the fight because he got rocked in that fight. And he gets rocked quite a bit and he gets clipped quite a bit. And Manuel Torres has looked unbelievable. His last fight got a nasty elbow KO, step-in elbow KO over Nicholas Mota. Before that, a KO win over Frank Camacho. And it's just looked honestly incredible. And he has 13 wins via finish. He has 14 wins. 13 of those are via finish. So I just feel like he's a guy that goes out there and brutally KOs people. And, he's on a good streak. He has some momentum going. Chris Duncan's on a decent streak, 4-fight win streak himself. But he likes to strike, and I don't think his striking is that good as Torres. And he has some decent grappling, but it's not like one of those guys like Habib or, like a Sean Brady or something along those lines. Not that I'm saying those are the same level, but I'm saying he's not a guy that goes out there and just ragdolls you and spams the takedown attempts. And I think Manuel Torres is going to be much faster on the feet. Now, we haven't really seen Torres' cardio tested all that much. So if it gets later, I think Chris Duncan's really scrappy, and maybe he could win, second, third round. But I don't see Torres gassing himself out. I see him finding a kill shot on the feet. Chris Duncan's very hittable, a little bit chinny. I'm going to go Manuel Torres first round KO. Clips him on the feet badly, finishes him in the first round. It's going to be a nasty finish by Manuel Torres. Moving up on the card, we have Yazmin Jauregui versus Sam Hughes. Yazmin Jauregui is sneaky good, but also she's kind of chinny. I mean, you go back and look at her last fight, got brutalized by Denise Gomes. I think it's Denise Gomes, actually. Got chinned early in that fight. Fight before that against Estela Nunes, she got a finish, but she got almost chinned by Estela Nunes as well. Before that, a win over Asmin Lucindo. Before that, she's outside the UFC. Then you have Sam Hughes just trading wins and losses. Has a win over Jacqueline Amorim in her last fight, where Amorim dominated her in the grappling and then gassed out after the first round. Fight before that, lost to Yair Rodriguez. I believe that was her UFC debut. She's just trading wins and losses, and she's not beating good competition. Elise Reed, Estela Nunes, so a win over her. Majority decision win over her. And then a loss against Luana Pinheiro. So I'm going Yazmin Jauregui. I think she's better. She has good volume, good cardio. Very open on the feet to get clipped. But Sam Hughes has no power. Sam Hughes is just basically mediocre everywhere. She's not really great anywhere. And I just don't see her chinning Jauregui. And I feel like the UFC intentionally made this matchup because they want as many Mexican fighters to win on this card as possible. So I'm going Yazmin Jauregui to outstrike her on the feet, land volume. I think she'll get busted up a little bit by Sam Hughes because Sam Hughes is decent. But I think at the end of the day, Jauregui is just going to be the better striker, put the volume on her, put the pacer on her, has decent grappling, can defend takedowns, and doesn't really get tired, honestly. She doesn't get tired at all pushing the pace. So I don't think Sam Hughes is going to go out there and gas her out in the first round by getting beat up and then come back in the second and third and kind of take her down and beat her up. Sam Hughes' only path to victory is her grappling, and I don't think she's going to be able to use her takedowns and her wrestling to win this fight. So I'm going Yazmin Jauregui. I'm going to say 30-27 decision. Moving up on the card, we have Raul Rosas Jr. versus Ricky Turcios. This is a good fight. This is good matchmaking by the UFC. You have Raul coming off that win over Terrence Mitchell. Before that, lost to Cristian Rodriguez, but I believe, did Cristian Rodriguez miss weight for that fight? I don't remember. But he dominated Cristian Rodriguez in the first round. I didn't really dominate him, but clearly won the first round with his grappling. But he kind of gassed out. And then Cristian Rodriguez, super well-rounded, defensively responsible on the feet. Also, good grappling as well. And he out-grappled Raul in the second and third a bit. Kind of out-scrambled him and ended up in top position quite a bit. And even had Raul's back a couple times. So Raul kind of got exposed in that fight, but Rodriguez is really good. And I think he might have missed weight for that fight. And then came back. Terrence Mitchell is literally bottom of the barrel. Doesn't belong in the UFC at all. Clipped him, rocked him, almost put him out on the feet. And then just dominated him from mount and brutalized him. And then you have Ricky Turcios coming off a win over Kevin Navidad. I don't even remember how to pronounce his name. Didn't look all that good in it. Got taken down multiple times in that fight. If I remember correctly, I thought the fight could go either way. And then the fight before that got outstruck by Ayman Zahabi. I think this is a fight the UFC wants Raul Rosas Jr. to win. He's 19 years old. They want to build him as a prospect. And I think he's the far superior grappler. Turcios has decent BJJ, but the takedown defense isn't good in his last fight, which really wasn't, it was about a year ago. I don't think he's improved that much in his grappling in that year off. I don't think he's going to have amazing takedown defense. I think Raul Rosas Jr. is very strong with his takedowns. I think he'll find takedowns. I think he'll find the back of Ricky Turcios. And I'm going to go Raul Rosas Jr. to win. I'm going to say second round submission. I'm going to say rear naked choke. I think he's going to he learned from his fight against Cristian Rodriguez. And I know he did kind of go all out in his last fight against Terrence Mitchell, but I think he knew he could steamroll him. I think against Turcios, he knows he's a little bit of a step up from a guy like Terrence Mitchell, where I think he's going to kind of protect his gas tank in the first round. He's going to realize, okay, I can beat this guy with my grappling. He's not going to, overextend himself and go crazy spamming takedowns, even though I think he'll find the takedowns really easy. Honestly, I think he could get the first round rear naked choke, but I think he's going to be a little bit more conservative with his energy in the first round. It's going to lead to a second round takedown, domination, get to the back, rear naked choke. But I think he wins the first round pretty clearly with his grappling. But Turcios has good enough BJJ where he's going to be able to survive on the ground in the first round. But then he's going to be a little bit more tired in the second round. Raul's going to be a little bit more aggressive because he knows, okay, after this round, I only have one more round. My gas tank is still feeling good. He's going to be really aggressive looking for the rear naked choke, really aggressive with the ground and pound. And I'm going to go Raul Rosas Jr. second round rear naked choke. Moving up on the card, the featured fight on the main card, we have Daniel Zellhuber versus Francisco Prado. I actually really like this fight quite a bit. You have Francisco Prado coming off that nasty KO win over Otman Azaitar. Before that, lost to Jamie Malarkey. Daniel Zellhuber, kind of a similar situation. Both very young prospects. He's coming off a submission win over Christos Giagos. Before that, a decision win over Lando Venata. And before that, a loss to Trey Ogden, where he just could not pull the trigger. It looked awful in that fight. And, a lot of people thought, okay, he's going to be good coming off Dana White's Contender Series, and they just shit the bed against Trey Ogden. But when you look at this matchup, I just think Daniel Zellhuber is much better than Francisco Prado. I think Francisco Prado has nasty KO power, but, I just don't think he has the ability to outstrike Zellhuber. I think he's probably going to try to grapple. I believe it was against Otman Azaitar he was shooting for some takedowns, and I think even in the Jamie Malarkey fight he was shooting for takedowns. He doesn't have an amazing wrestling style, offensive wrestling, and takedown ability. And I think to beat Daniel Zellhuber, I think you have to be able to mix in the takedowns. I think Zellhuber has a reach advantage, has a height advantage. It's not like crazy, but he has that advantage, and I think he's the better striker. And I think his takedown defense is good enough where he'll be able to just use his length and distance management, and I think he's going to have much better striking. And Prado also leaps him at kind of hooks, where Zellhuber uses a lot of kind of straight punches. Prado likes to spin quite a bit as well. I think Prado is going to realize early, can't strike with Zellhuber. Zellhuber is going to be landing on the chin. And I think Prado is going to look to grapple, look to get a takedown, maybe find a submission or something like that. But I think Zellhuber is just going to be too good for him. I think Daniel Zellhuber is going to outclass Francisco Prado to a decision. I'm going to say 30-27 decision. It's crazy how young they both are. I mean, Zellhuber's only 24 years old. Prado's 21 years old. So I think they're both interesting prospects. I think they both still have a long way to go. But I just think what this fight comes down to is Zellhuber is the better, more technical striker and will be able to stuff the takedown. All he has to do is avoid the power of Prado, because Prado does have nasty power and he does kind of get aggressive and explosive early. So as long as he can avoid that power and not get rocked early, I think Daniel Zellhuber will cruise to a decision win over Francisco Prado. Moving up on the card, we have the co-main event, the 5-round co-main event, by the way. I love when the UFC has really good fights in a co-main event that deserves to be 5 rounds, and they make it 5 rounds. We have Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega 2. We actually have a lot of fights on this card where There was injuries in previous fights, I think. So you have Ortega the last time they fought. Ortega hurt his shoulder. Then you have in the main event Royval, which we'll talk about in a second. Last time he fought Moreno, he injured his shoulder. Then I'm trying to think, there was someone else on the card. Dennis Bondar against Malcolm Gordon 2 fights ago hurt his, elbow. And there's probably other guys that I'm not even thinking of right now off the top of my head. But you have Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega 2, co-main event, 5 rounds. Absolutely love that. Top prospects in the featherweight division. The featherweight division just got turned upside down by Ilia Topuria. You have Yair coming off a destruction against Alexander Volkanovski, but it wasn't a bad performance. Before that, submitted Josh Emmett. Before that, beat Brian Ortega, and a lot of people called it a fluke injury. I consider it a Yair Rodriguez submission win. He was locking up an armbar. Brian Ortega pulled out his elbow to clear the arm and injured his shoulder. I consider that a submission win, and Yair Rodriguez was lighting him up before that. Now, Ortega did get a takedown in the first round, but he had to struggle for it a bit. And I'm pretty sure Yair would have been able to scramble back to his feet. Now, we all know what kind of fight this is. Striker versus grappler. Brian Ortega squatting on the rankings. Hasn't fought in a year and a half. His last fight was against Yair Rodriguez. Fight before that, lost to Alexander Volkanovski. Took a lot of damage in that fight. People called that fight of the year, but clearly Volkanovski won every single round. And Ortega's only moments were almost submission attempts. Then the fight before that, his last win was 3 years, 3 months ago against the dead body of Chan Sung Jung. And before that, got absolutely destroyed by Max Holloway. 1 win in the last 5 years for Brian Ortega. How is he still in like the top 5? I haven't seen the redone rankings. Maybe he slipped out, but I don't know how he's still in the top 5. This fight's rather easy to predict for me. I think Brian Ortega needs the takedown, needs the control. And Yair's had issues with takedowns and, wrestlers in the past, but I just think he's too slick on the feet. He's going to have the full-size cage, I believe, in Mexico, so he can use his footwork, circle around. He has decent enough takedown defense. I just don't think Brian Ortega gets this done. Yair was lighting him up on the feet with his hands and his kicks in the first fight and then submitted him. So I think it was a flawless performance from Yair Rodriguez in the first fight, and I think he does it again. I think he's going to light Brian Ortega up. I think he's going to beat him up to the body. Ortega's very, very durable, but he's taken a lifetime of beating in that Max Holloway fight and the Alexander Volkanovski fight, and I think pretty soon it's going to catch up to him. He's 33 years old. It's going to catch up to him. He's going to get finished. And I think Yair Rodriguez gets the job done in this fight via finish. I think Yair's going to clearly be winning this fight. I think he's going to be lighting him up on the feet. I think he's going to be slamming leg kicks, slamming body kicks, slamming head kicks. I could see this fight ending in another injury. I could see Yair throwing a nasty head kick, Brian Ortega blocking it with one arm and like breaking his wrist, breaking his arm, and then the fight's over. I could literally see that. But I think Yair's going to beat him up badly on the feet. I think Ortega might get a takedown or two, but I think Yair, very aggressive off the bottom, threatening with submission attempts, and also super scrappy to find his way back to his feet as well. I think this fight is going to be going Yair Rodriguez's way, and I think it's just going to be, he's going to start slowly pulling away as the fight goes on. He's going to be clearly winning, but it's going to start to get worse and worse. Ortega's going to have a busted up eye, busted up nose, busted up lips, and then I think eventually in the third round, Yair Rodriguez hurts him badly with something, probably a head kick or a body kick, hurts him badly, and then boom, ground and pound TKO. I'm going Yair Rodriguez, third round TKO over Brian Ortega. I just think Yair's just too good on the feet for Brian Ortega. And Yair's hands have been evolving too, so he has another weapon in the bank. The diversity of attacks, the scrappiness on the ground, never settles, submitted Josh Emmett from bottom. I just think Yair Rodriguez has too many weapons in this fight and has amazing cardio too. We saw him go 5 rounds with Max Holloway. So if it goes later rounds, I have Yair Rodriguez having the advantage. And Brian Ortega striking, he just plots forward and is kind of sloppy with the hands. He has decent hands. They've gotten a little bit better, but he's just really, really sloppy. So I'm going Yair Rodriguez, third round TKO, head kick TKO by Yair Rodriguez. Moving up on the card to the main event, we have Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval 2. Now, these guys fought a while ago. Brandon Moreno was winning with his wrestling, grappling. At one point, had a twister almost there, but didn't really go for it. Controlled Royval on the ground. Then eventually Royval hurt his shoulder, and Brandon Moreno ground and pounded him out. That was back in 2020. They've both gotten a lot better since then. They've both been in a lot of Brandon Moreno's really been in a lot of war since then. They're both coming off a fight against Alexandre Pantoja. Brandon Royval's taken this on short notice, though, and I don't like that. He took a decent amount of damage in the Royval fight and just really couldn't get off in that Royval fight, or couldn't get off in the Pantoja fight. I'm misspeaking here. Couldn't really get off in that fight. And, he had some moments. I felt like later on, he could have really pushed the pace and maybe got a finish, but, he wasn't able to do that. And he's taking this on short notice. Brandon Moreno has taken a good amount of time off, took 7 months off since the Pantoja fight, which was an absolute war. It was a split decision loss to Pantoja that I thought he could have arguably won. Fight before that, he's like fighting Davison Figueiredo every other weekend, Kai Kara France. I mean, when's the last time Brandon Moreno hasn't had a rematch? It's probably been since 2020, honestly, at this point. He's been fighting Alexandre Pantoja and Davison Figueiredo his entire career. Moreno's so good, and it seems like he gets better every fight, and he's only 30 years old, and he's arguably in his prime. And while Royval's super scrappy, the takedown defense isn't good. It just isn't good. I thought it's been getting better, and he is kind of scrappy and hard to hold down. Moreno was able to hold him down back in 2020. Moreno's only gotten a lot better with his grappling and his jiu-jitsu and his boxing. And Royval, I feel like, has improved, but nowhere near as much as Brandon Moreno has. Plus, you take in the fact that Royval's taken in on short notice. I have to go Brandon Moreno in this fight. I think Brandon Moreno gets it done. I think unless he gets caught with like a spinning elbow or a flying knee from Royval, I think Royval just doesn't have the power to put Moreno away. Moreno has a nasty chin. I mean, he takes everything from Davison Figueiredo, everything from Pantoja, and just sits there and looks at him. You know, maybe his chin's going to disappear one day, but I think unless it's one of those crazy explosive shots from Royval, I see Moreno just outboxing him, mixing in the grappling, controlling him. I think you'll see Royval scramble back to his feet, but I think Moreno will clear-cut win this fight. I see like a 49-46 decision win for Brandon Moreno, and I could even see Brandon Moreno TKOing Brandon Royval on the feet. The only reason I'm not picking that is because Moreno's not really known for his power. Like when he finished Figueiredo, it was more of like an eye injury than anything from a punch to the eye. So he doesn't have like crazy KO power. So that's why I'm not picking Moreno by decision, but I think he's going to dominate him in the grappling. I think he's going to be clearly getting the better of him on the feet with the boxing. And I think Royval's only hope is to catch him with like a flashy strike and KO Brandon Moreno, but we know how good Brandon Moreno's chin is. Plus Moreno's stamina is unbelievable, multiple 5-round fights. And I just think Royval, the grappling and the takedown defense is a massive hole in his game. And I think Moreno's only gotten better, where Royval has only gotten marginally better since their first fight. So I'm going Brandon Moreno 49-46 decision in the main event at UFC Fight Night Mexico City. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll be live on Saturday night for this full card. Join me watching the fights. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.